Retracing the journey, the map beyond the first ice walls. Terra Infinita began with a question that gradually opened an ever-widening fracture in everything we believed we knew. That path revealed others, until I found myself entering dangerous territory from which there is no return. I made this clear to the ancestral humans, and they understand it very well. Yet I consider every step necessary, and every published text has been more than a decision. It has been an unavoidable act in the pursuit of a truth that can never be fully absorbed. The question seems to arise from humanity's natural desire for knowledge and truth. Yet, without fully realizing it, the path it opens is extremely dangerous. What truly exists beyond the boundaries we were taught to accept? For generations, through direct and indirect manipulation, humanity has viewed Antarctica as a distant edge, a mass of ice lost in the south, an almost symbolic place where maps ended and excuses began. We were told that there was nothing to see, nothing to search for, and nothing capable of changing our understanding of the world. Yet within this history, Antarctica does not represent an ending. It represents a doorway, a new beginning, and an entirely different timeline, as bright and beautiful as it is dangerous in many ways. One of the pioneers who crossed that threshold was William Morris, a navigator marked by war, loss, and an inner restlessness he could never abandon. He was assisted by the ancestral human butler. His journey became the first rupture, the first concrete act against the confinement of the known lands. The collision between those two realities would affect him deeply. By traveling south and crossing what everyone considered impossible, Morris discovered that beyond Antarctica lay seas, lands, routes, conflicts, structures, and civilizations that had been separated from our humanity. What appeared to be the boundary of the world was merely the first barrier within a far greater system. That discovery changed everything, and nothing was ever the same again. Morris also found evidence that our history had been administered from outside. He understood that the humanity of the known lands lived within an enclosed, reduced, and closely monitored region. That confinement was far from natural. It was the result of an ancient intervention carried out by forces that understood the true structure of the world and did everything possible to conceal it. These colonizers came from distant lands and transformed what we call Earth into their principal colony, a possession they never intended to abandon. Morris also learned about the resets and the different cycles of previous human civilizations. This is where the custodians and the Anunnaki appear, two forces essential to understanding everything that followed. They are responsible for transforming our humanity into a colony isolated from its true origin. The Anunnaki are connected with monumental technologies, pyramids, floods, resets, and mechanisms capable of destroying or reconfiguring entire territories. United, these two groups form a force too powerful to defeat directly. They also receive external assistance from the Grace of Orion, the Eta means of Draco, the Nibiruns, and other beings. The first great revelation then becomes clear. Humanity was intentionally separated. It is far from insignificant, yet it was diminished. This narrative entered deeply into the human mind through increasingly severe manipulation during each reset, beneath an implanted false sky filled with stars. Humanity was not created to live in fear, confusion, and obedience. It was driven into that condition through wars, resets, genetic manipulation, disease, false historical narratives, and a completely conditioned perception of the world. Helen Morris, William's daughter, was born beyond the ice walls, thousands of kilometers from the known lands. She would also provide her own account. Helen does not observe our world as someone discovering a strange external region. She sees it as someone looking upon a wounded, enclosed, and anesthetized land. Through my contact with her, the Nocelli map, or Terra Infinita, began to take shape. The different domes emerged, along with many other regions that must be understood as worlds and territories within a horizontal architecture. With sufficient technology and navigational knowledge, these places can be physically reached. This point is essential because it replaces the perspective of imaginary spheres suspended in outer space across impossible distances. Helen's revelation did more than expand the geography. It changed the direction of our gaze. Throughout our lives, we were taught to imagine mystery above us, within a distant and almost unreachable outer space. Yet the information received pointed elsewhere. The worlds exist around us, connected by roots, membranes, passages, portals, seas, walls, and domes. It also became evident that present-day humanity is not an original humanity in its complete state. It is a humanity born after a defeat and formed through a process of reset. It inherited ruins without understanding them, symbols without remembering their meaning, cities without knowing their builders, and a history written by those who emerged victorious. Unfortunately, we are living through the darkest, cruelest, and most restrictive cycle so far, the result of what the colonizers created after fearing the loss of their most valuable colony. For this reason, resets became a central instrument of control. At this point, the valuable giants of the South appear: the Anakim, the ancestral humans, ancient Great Tartary, and the remains of earlier civilizations. The history becomes broader and more painful. It is a process of reconstructing memories that were deliberately erased. The ice walls do not merely separate territories. They separate present-day humanity from its ancestral brothers and sisters, its original roots, and its true past. The Great Ancestral Library also becomes a central location. Important records emerge concerning the 178 worlds, the portals, and the testimonies of those who survived the collapse of previous cycles. The library became a beacon of resistance, and from my humble position, I have attempted to ensure that many of its most important texts are published. The idea then begins to emerge that we live beneath a great dome that may itself be part of an even greater system. The appearance of Hurenk and the connection with Cassiopeia open another stage of this journey. We are no longer speaking only of human navigators or ancestral testimonies, but of civilizations capable of providing technology, opening routes, crossing membranes, and assisting humanity in its process of liberation. The Hurenk portal represents a union between advanced technology and spiritual purpose. It is not merely a way of physically crossing a barrier. It reminds us that the human soul, empathy, unconditional love, and the connection with the source are also essential parts of this transformation. Within Terra Infinita, spirituality is not a decorative element. It is a real force, a form of inner technology and perhaps the most effective defense against parasitic colonization. The Great Dome therefore ceases to represent the final frontier. Until that point, understanding the 178 worlds contained within it already seems sufficient to destroy every previous conception of reality. Yet the possibility then appears that even this immense structure is only one part of something far greater. The other domes, the new barriers, the external worlds, the races attempting to cross upper membranes, and the conflicts extending beyond our region once again transform the scale of the account. The question is no longer only how to liberate the humanity of the known lands. The question has become much greater. What place does our humanity occupy within an architecture of domes, races, cycles, resets, and greater organisms?